Here we have a 4x12 beam that is 17 feet long. It's used. It's got some nails in it. Kind of a barn look to it. And that's actually going to be a stretcher for the base of this 17-foot long table. Here I have the center beam all cleaned up and sanded and all the chips taken away. It's now smooth to the touch. You'll notice I take too much care to make it look much different. But now I can run my hand across it with no splinters. Any of the nails I actually left in there. I just drove them a little bit deeper so they wouldn't be a problem later on. And the ends of the beam I chamfered a bit just to give it a little bit of a finished look once the legs go on. Here I have the beam. That is a 6x6 beam right now. A little hard to see, but it's going to get cut down to be legs. I picked one that the edge was kind of beat up. Used to be the side of the tree, because that's going to mimic the natural live edge on the slab tabletop. Again, I'm going to leave in some nice holes and marks and things like that to try to give it that old barnwood feel. Alright, now I'm just laying out the leg sections, trying to determine which side I'll have facing out. I think because these sides are chipped out already, or the edge of the log, I'm going to use them as the outer corner. I also like the added holes just for looks. I'm going to rabbet out a 1-inch deep groove using my dado blade. That's going to be the width of my center rail so that it's got something to sit on. Alright, I've finished dadoing it out. Took quite a few passes, but it's done. So now it'll sit kind of recessed into the legs. Give it some strength and stability once it's all bolted in. Alright, I've got my legs clamped in place. The whole assembly is upside down, and I've marked where I'm going to drill my holes. I'm going to go ahead and drill them all the way through with a bit that I've got. It's about 18 inches long. That'll go all the way through. I had to do a little bit of tweaking on the dados to get everything lined up right. Have to make sure that it lines up square so that the table's not leaning and racking and wobbling around and whatnot. So, good to go. I've got what I'm considering a front to this table and a back to this table. So I've made sure to drill from the front where I can control exactly where the holes are going to go. But with those big long bits, it's kind of hard to control exactly where they're going to pop out without a spotter. I didn't have one. So I'm a little bit off up and down. Side to side I'm pretty close, but a little off up and down. But it's not going to matter because it's on the back of the table, which is facing near a wall. So, something to watch out for. Okay, I've got that far side set now. There's still a couple clamps on it because I haven't gotten the bolts in, but I've got the holes drilled for it. And so what I've done is I've leveled the beam out on the sawhorses and used that as my reference. Now I've come over here, and to set these legs, I've got them in place. I've hogged out what I need to here and there, and I've tightened or loosened the clamps accordingly to get this foot on top to also be level. That way what I've got is a plane that if you look down the two edges of it, it lines up pretty much right on, which is what we want. I decided after looking at it that the beam just looked a little bit heavy, so I'm going to go ahead and cut a curve into it to make it look a little bit lighter than it is. So what I've done is I've just measured off and marked, driven a nail on each end about 12 1/4 inches in, and then hung a string from it and just let gravity do the work. It's kind of a heavy string. I went ahead and changed the dimensions a little bit and added a second layer to the foot. Here we have it all ready to go. Everything's sanded, the holes are drilled to attach the top. The arch has been all finished sanded. Everything's cleaned up. I've blown out all the cracks, gotten it ready for staining. When it's done, I'm going to paint those bolts so they're black and look like wrought iron a little bit. But for now, I'm just getting it ready to spray some stain on. For stain, I've got Old Master's wiping stain. It's a golden oak color. I'm actually going to spray it on because it's a whole lot easier to get in all the cracks and stuff. And then I'll go ahead and wipe it back off. But that'll give it kind of a reddish look to match some existing chairs that they have. Here I've just finished spraying the second coat of a semi-gloss spar varnish. It's an outdoor rated varnish, but it's thick and somewhat flexible, so it'll make a really good finish for this table base. I painted the bolts all before I went ahead and did this, and I'm just spraying the varnish directly over top of them. See, it's got a pretty good shine. It's a pretty thick coat. I cut through initially with my skill saw, but because this is 3 inches deep and a skill saw won't cut quite that deep, got about a 1/4 inch left that I need to get through. So this is a good job for a Sawzall. It only leaves it a little bit messy, but nothing that can't easily be cleaned up. Alright, here I've got it mostly smooth now. It's taken good part of the day. I used started with a hand planer. It was taking a little bit long, so I got a power planer that I had. And that worked really well. Got it down to bare, clean wood. And I followed it up with some 40 grit sandpaper on my random orbital sander. And then to clean up some of the marks left by that, I used an old hand scraper and a card scraper. I've got it pretty well smoothed out, smooth enough anyways to begin my epoxy application. I've got a little bit of sanding still to clean up the outsides. It'll be ready to go. I'm going to start by filling it with epoxy that's been cut down about 10% with acetone, just to make it a little thinner so it'll really work itself into this wood. I'm going to color the epoxy with an epoxy dye, and I'm going to put several different coats on top of each other with different colors and different thicknesses. I'm just going to keep working it in until it's pretty much filled. Alright, it's all stained now and ready to go. Everything is dry. I've used a tack cloth to wipe it all down from any dust that might have settled on it. And now I'm going to start coating it with waterborne lacquer. I'll probably tint the first coat a little bit in order to kind of even out the color of this, but not too much. I kind of like its rustic appearance. Here I've got it all polished out now. I used several different grits of sandpaper, starting at 400, moving to 600, 1200, and then 1500. It was wet, dry sandpaper, and I used mineral spirits as a lubricant. That got it smooth and started to shine it. Then I took and polished it out with a buffer and polishing compound that you would use on a car, and got it to really shine up. Now you can pretty much see reflections in it. If I wanted to, I could buff it back down some to get it more to a satiny sheen, and I may eventually, but for now it just feels so nice I don't want to mess with it. So it is officially done as far as work on the top goes. The only thing left I've got to do is attach it to the base and build some benches.